Just as a heads up, I'm about to go on a long-winded rant about the new Fantastic Beasts movie. If you haven't seen it yet, I'll be diving into spoilers, as well as spoiling pretty much all of the Harry Potter movies, so consider yourself warned. Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore is finally here after 4 long years of waiting since the past movie. It's the 3rd installment of this series, and listen guys, take it from me, it's dog water. Hear me out, the first Fantastic Beasts is a great movie. Sure, it's got some issues in its pacing, but think about how many great things came out of it. The characters are perfect. Newt Scamander is a certified lover boy. Jacob Kowalski is a muggle forced into the wizarding world, which is so cool. Tina Goldstein is easily wife material. It's all you could ever want. Then they released the second movie and it kind of flopped for me. Things just got so confusing with all the new characters that I kind of lost interest. And now we have Secrets of Dumbledore, and oh boy, let me tell you, this one's the worst. I'm gonna apologize right now if you like this movie. I'm happy for you, but I'm about to absolutely dropkick it. My biggest issue with Secrets of Dumbledore, and honestly the series as a whole, is that it really seems like the writers have no direction. So many movies these days, especially franchise films, try so hard to make things as complicated as they possibly can. Fantastic Beasts in particular falls into this trap. They introduce so many interesting characters. You got a wizard with a briefcase that's basically a ticking time bomb full of magical creatures. There's a muggle running around the wizarding world, wizard cops, and yet all they really do is stand around and make faces at each other. To prove my point, you could delete these last 2 movies from existence and nothing would have changed from the end of the first movie. I'm serious, Queenie turned evil and then immediately turned back again for no reason. Newt is separated from Tina on good terms, just like before. Grindelwald had all his crimes wiped from the record and then instantly became a wanted man again. This series is somehow more confusing if you watch these 2 movies rather than skip them entirely. And that's not a good thing, man. It's obvious they wanted to make this some huge 5-movie franchise, and I'm sure they have a vision for how everything is gonna end, but it's the middle section that ends up feeling meaningless, aside from just showing us some new Wizarding World stuff. It's like they made this 3rd movie to reverse everything that happened in the second one, making both of them feel pointless and empty. That's not even the worst part though, it's like they never even had a story to begin with. Let's try something together. I challenge you in a single sentence to tell me what happens in this movie down in the comments. Go ahead, I'm not even kidding. What's the story of Secrets of Dumbledore? In Sorcerer's Stone, Harry finds out he's a wizard and learns the power of love and friendship. Boom, done. Chamber of Secrets, Harry's framed for murder and has to clear his name. Boom, done. Prisoner of Azkaban, Harry solves the mystery of who is out to kill him. Boom, do I need to keep going? Simple stories are the ones that stand the test of time. You could argue that the hero's journey or tragedies are overplayed, but that's because they work no matter what the context is. You can't just build a whole movie out of, ooh, remember that mirror Harry used to carry around? Or, ooh, Dumbledore, remember Dumbledore? You can keep that stuff, but don't make your whole story about what you thought made Harry Potter so good. That should be the seasoning, not the meat and potatoes. I think Star Wars is a perfect example of this. The original films were great for how simple they were in the context of a world we have never seen before. Then the prequels came around and they were like, oh, we gotta establish what trade relations are like in the galaxy, and ooh, you got hella metachlorians, my man. What the hell is a metachlorian? Look, I love the prequels as much as the next guy, but come on, come on. The reason The Mandalorian is so good is because it stripped away all that boring world-building stuff just to give you a straight-up story. A guy changes his beliefs in order to protect a kid. That's it, and it's awesome. Even if we pretended for a moment that there is a story somewhere hidden deep underneath all this fluff, I mean, the plot doesn't seem to make sense to begin with. Grindelwald is trying to be elected as the Ultra Wizard King of the universe because I guess that's just a thing that exists now. I still don't get what that's all about. There's this massive election that decides who will rule over all the wizards all over the planet, which has never been mentioned before. But even getting past that doesn't make sense. The entire cast of characters spends the first half of the movie creating this plan to confuse Grindelwald, which basically ended up being a total waste of time because they all did stuff that felt so unrelated to the plot. Then when they all meet at the end of the plan, they're like, okay, that didn't work, but it is what it is, I guess. And I'm like, give me that hour back of my life, please. And then Grindelwald goes through this whole thing to get his name cleared so that people will want to vote him Wizard King. And then out of nowhere they say, hey, remember those people who were going to vote for Grindelwald? Well, they don't really matter now because everything is going to be decided by a magical animal. So what was the point of all that? There are so many times where this movie opens up plot lines, forgets them, and drops them immediately. Not only does it absolutely destroy the pacing of the movie, but it creates a distrust from the audience, making them feel out of the loop and losing interest in plot lines that will end up entirely pointless. While we're on the subject, let's talk about the pacing. You ever been on one of those wooden roller coasters that roll back and forth while you can feel your brain vibrating? The pacing of Secrets of Dumbledore is not far off. The whole film is a mess in this department, but I want to focus on a scene during the final act that blew my mind. Within the span of 10 to 15 minutes, Grindelwald is elected Wizard King, Jacob is tortured by an unforgivable curse, Dumbledore duels Grindelwald and then breaks his sacred seal thingy, Credence meets his father, a new wizard queen is elected. It's just one thing after another and you just feel so claustrophobic. It's like everyone in the scene is waiting their turn to do something. And once it moves on to the next character, everyone else gets put on pause. It's a weird feeling trying to care about somebody in a scene when you know that in 15 seconds it probably won't matter anymore or it'll be dropped entirely. There are so many moments too where you're introduced to something new and you're like, ooh, that'll be important to the plot later, and then nothing ever comes from it. There's this popular concept in film called Chekhovs Gun that basically states if you see a gun at some point, it needs to be fired. The point is, if you set something up, it has to have some sort of effect on the story, but there are so many times where plot lines are introduced and nothing happens. Oh, Jacob is the first muggle we've ever seen to carry around a wand? Well, he's not even going to try to use it, so it doesn't really matter. Queenie joins the bad guys and gives them the power to read other characters' minds. It's okay, she'll just turn good again before anything ever happens with that. What's the point of mixing up the story just to reset everything immediately afterwards? It's lazy writing, and it's treating the audience like they're dumb monkeys who just want to see big explosions. I fell in love with Harry Potter because at its core, it's a simple story of a kid growing up. Yeah, there's this wonderful world full of magic and wizards and non-alcoholic beer, but you could take all that away and the story would still be able to stand on its own. Fantastic Beasts is trying so hard to rekindle that magic with cheap fan service and over-the-top action, but it's missing what made Harry Potter so special. Relatability. When Harry lost something important to him, that feeling of loss never left, and he was a different person because of it. Every single experience and choice he made shaped him into who he was supposed to become, making even these subtle moments feel important. I had a lot of faith leaving the first Fantastic Beasts movie. There were so many new interesting characters with exciting dynamics that I wanted to see further explored. But if the series continues to make shallow choices for these characters, I can't see it living up to what could have been. Tina and Newt have some of the best on-screen chemistry I've ever seen. Seeing them awkwardly fumble through the first film together felt so pure and honest that you were excited to see how their relationship unfolds over the rest of the films. Tina has less than a minute of screen time in this movie, and big surprise, it's hands down the best scene out of the whole 2.5 hours. If they weren't so hard set on introducing so many new characters, we would actually be able to see the characters we care about develop and grow, but instead, characters who felt like the heart and soul of this series get pushed to the sidelines. Thinking about the potential, it's just so sad, man. The first movie built up to make you believe we were in for a great romance story, and that's almost been completely thrown out the window at this point. So it's got me thinking, how could this series possibly find its footing after fumbling the bag so many times? Well, it's not going to be easy, but they first need to recognize that adding more and more characters just isn't the move. They've already seemingly ditched the idea of having Nagini, Nicholas Flamel, and all the other characters who didn't show up in this movie, so that should just tell you that there's way too much to keep track of right now. Trim the fat out and focus on the characters that made the first movie great. You can keep the new characters, but stop trying to develop them and actually give Newt and Tina and Jacob something to do. Stop pretending like they're already fan favorites so they don't need any work, because otherwise these movies feel claustrophobic and hollow at the same time. I love seeing young Dumbledore in action, but he doesn't need to be a main character in order for Harry Potter fans to enjoy these movies. When you make a spin-off series from a popular franchise, of course you want references and fan service and something that feels familiar, but you can do that while gradually working towards something original. Weirdly enough, these movies have felt like they are working backwards. The first Fantastic Beasts was an original look inside a part of the wizarding world we've never seen before. And then the second one came out and suddenly we're going back to Hogwarts and meeting Dumbledore. We've already seen all this. Don't you want to carve out a piece of this world for your own rather than catering to a section of fans that don't actually exist? If this series is going to end on a high note, they need to rethink what fans actually want instead of relying on the past. Anyways, that's pretty much all I've got, but I needed somewhere to ramble, so I hope it was at least enjoyable. I care a lot about this series, as do a ton of fans, so I'm not doing this out of spite, but for the hope that the legacy of the wizarding world can realize that they're worth more. Okay, subscribe if you haven't already. Bye bye.